Today we're joined by another guest. Welcome aboard, Trishan Patal. And of course, Jason Franklin, we're back interviewing another guest this week. Trishan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No worries. So Jason, welcome back. It's another guest.
Another guest.
So Trishan, talk to us then about your upbringing into football, because we always want to start with your early days growing up. And we know that you've got some brothers. So talk to us about the early times when you started to play.
Yeah, sure. So my household was absolute chaos, to be honest. And I had a great upbringing in terms of, there was a lot of fun. I've got three brothers, two older than me, one younger. So the first thing I learned about was how to lose, because my brothers never let me win, which helped me, have that kind of mentality of like, I've got to work to win. So yeah, I've got to work to win. So there was a lot of broken kind of things in the house because we were playing football, we were playing cricket, all sports really. So it was very active. Me and my brothers, if I wasn't playing football or cricket, then I would go and watch my brothers play. So it was just at the forefront of my kind of lifestyle, really. Like I said, I had a lot of fun, and I really think that early experience of sport and, learning how to taste defeat, which actually makes you want to win, I think that played a big part in my love for football, really.
You mentioned you played many sports, but the two main ones were football and cricket. And you played quite a good level for cricket. Under 15s England trials, I heard. So how was it playing at that high level, trying to manage both of them?
I think my dad gave me an inkling at a point to say to me, look, I know you enjoy both and they don't really intercross during the season. So once football was finished, I jumped straight into cricket. But he kind of noticed that I had a passion and love for both, but he understood that at one point I was going to have to choose. And to be honest, it was always going to be football for me. I just felt this undeniable joy whenever I was either watching it, playing it. And obviously I'm a big Liverpool supporter, so yeah.
So Zaid, by the way.
Yeah, they just played a big part, honestly. I know most supporters will say that, but I felt like I belonged to something, and I'm fully in, and I'm still fully in. I'm a grown man, and only at the weekend I went through all sorts of emotions against Brentford, and Nunes has popped up in the 90th minute.
Yeah,
and
I'm happy about that as a Fulham fan.
Honestly, it was and it is the emotion of football that draws me in. I'm an all-in type of guy, So in the end, I knew I had a choice and decision to make, and it was always going to be football for me.
You mentioned your brothers, of course, like winners' mentalities. I know that you spoke to me last time and you said that. Do you think to have a winner's mentality from young can impact what you do later down the line?
Yeah, I think the more experiences that you can have of not just winning, like losing, and then having people to mentor you. And now that word mentoring has come up a lot in the last 5-6 years, but actually looking back, I've always had good mentors and they're always disguised. So my brothers were always good mentors to me. So, for example, when you do lose, your brothers tease you a little bit. But even like the messages that they would say to me after was like, if you want to beat me, you got to be good.
Yeah.
You got to work harder. And those little subtle messages, they ingrain. It's not nice to lose, but it also gives you an understanding of what it's going to take.
Yeah.
Like nothing in this life comes like easy. It translates not just through sport, but in life as well. So I'm a big believer in experiencing like highs and lows and asking yourself, what did that teach me? So that's kind of a question that I ask myself a lot. I go through many highs and lows in my life, and it's always about what did that teach me so I can keep progressing.
I know you've got a younger brother as well, is that right?
Yeah.
So you said to him, obviously you went through the hard times with your brother as well. They didn't let you win. And then didn't your parents turn around to you and say, why didn't you let your younger brother win?
Yeah, so I was not having that because I'm not too sure whether they told my older brothers that when I was like crying and sulking. But no, I gave that tough love to my brother too. Obviously, at times I have to let him win. Otherwise, it's absolute chaos in the house. But no, I think we all support each other now, and it was just a bit of tough love. And sometimes you need that firmness, and nothing comes to you. That's what I've realised even now, just like in in my coaching journey, I'm having to really, really graft, and it's okay because that's what I've been brought up with anyway. So I'm willing to put the hard yards in, no problem.
Yeah, so you've been speaking about unconditional love during your family time. How important has it been to take that throughout your whole entire coaching journey?
Yeah, like family is hugely important to me. Like without my mum and dad, I wouldn't be pursuing my dreams. Like I owe them everything. And a big thing is losing my dad in 2016. I lost my dad, and it was through like really a traumatic kind of way in terms of like he took his own life, and that definitely made me zone in on what I'm doing, but also why I'm doing it. Before it was all about producing and developing good young technical players. Now it's about making sure, first and foremost, I build a bond, a connection. So then if there's any issues off the field, they feel comfortable with coming to me. I take real pride in that, to be that person. And then the later on knock-on effect is you see the impact that you have on the pitch after that bond and connection is formed, you know? So, yeah, look, my parents are my heroes, and I will forever honour them in my everyday life. You know, I'm not always perfect, and they've just always taught me to, like, pick yourself up, keep picking yourself up, because that's what they've had to do throughout their lives. When they came here in 66, I believe, and, you know, for a South Asian person to be in this country at that time must not have been easy. They told me the stories of what they had to put up with and, you know, deal with. So when I face a little bit of adversity, sometimes I go back to like, actually, they've had it worse, you know, so they give me the strength in so many ways.
So you mentioned your parents that were bringing you up, and you mentioned about gentlemen's games, and I know that you've told me in the past about shaking hands with the teammates and the opponents after the game. For you, is that a crucial side of football? Because I know that a lot of people down the years have sort of lost that element of a gentleman's game.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I am so competitive, you know, even my friends say, you're a bit of a bad loser at times, you know.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, and look, I understand that, but there's also, I'm really, really in agreement of that gentleman's honour in terms of shaking people's hands and, you know, understanding that there's more to life than football. Although I love it, I also understand that there's a line that you just can't cross. I think that's really important, you know, and I'll continue to live by that. Do I like losing? No, absolutely not. But you look people in the eye and you shake their hands and you have a drink after the game or whatever, you stay connected, because ultimately when the dust is settled, it is just a game, you know.
So I read that your dad actually took days off from work to take you to cricket. So that must have felt really surreal to have your dad doing that.
So you don't realise these things until you get older and you reflect. And like when he passed away, I had a lot of time to think, obviously, and those are the good things that I like really thought about, as if, wow, he actually took time off work to come and watch me. So that was a real privilege, and it makes me think, God willing, one day if I have children, I want to do the same, because it meant a lot to me to actually like compete, but then look on the side and see that my dad was there and that he was present, and my mum was there too, you know, and that meant a lot. And I definitely think it's important that parents are visible, and just the impact that they can have just by being there and turning up. And my mum, before, she didn't know a lot about football. Now, honestly, we have some real good football chats, because just for the fact that she came and watched me and my brothers. Football was always on in the house on the TV, and then she's all in now, you know, with me. So no, it's good. I'm really proud of that for sure.
I feel like with grassroots in our country, I feel like it's such a big achievement that people don't quite realise. Your parents can come and watch you, or I mean, like, they can watch you at all levels. But I feel like for grassroots, when you're being nurtured as a child, I feel like it's really important for your parents to come and watch you. And you know, when my dad would watch me on some games, it feels good. I mean, maybe not so much now because I'm a bit older, but when he does, even now, because he hasn't watched as many this season, it's so good to just understand that when he's there, I feel like safe. I feel
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely. And this is the thing. This is the sad thing. The flip side is I've managed teams, and sometimes their parents aren't present. So that's why it's so even more important to give that love and have that nurturing side to you as a coach, as a manager, because they might not have that support. And I think my life experiences have taught me to identify those kind of things really quickly. So, yeah, although it's great that parents do support, not everyone has that. So, yeah, that's one of my observations, actually. So I'm definitely going to continue to be nurturing.
So how much of coaching would you say is about, firstly, improving as a football player, but then also as a person?
From a coach's perspective,
yeah,
it's a good question. If you asked me this 10 years ago, I would have said I'd say 70% is about improving the player, 30% is improving the person. Now I flipped it, really. I'd say I'd go as strong as 80% is the person, and 30% is the player. But look, ultimately, you're going to be working at different levels. So, for example, when I worked with the Pakistan national team, it's all about performance and results, so that will slightly change, as in we're driving them towards high performance, winning games, results driven, we really, really drive that. But that doesn't really lessen me not asking them about, their personal life, their family. I don't think that'll ever change with me, to be honest. But I definitely think there's been a flip from 10 years ago to now in terms of my own personal viewpoints.
You were at Luton about 10 years ago as a coach in the community.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty like a surreal thing to do, to go and coach in the community. Was that voluntary? So you did that kind of off your own back?
Yeah. So I think what I got taught from an early age through my mentors is like the best way to improve is just get lots of contact time on the grass of coaching. And that enabled me to, make your mistakes and reflect and learn and just work with a range of people. And those people were my people, so that made it even more sweet to be able to doing a job that I loved, but I'm helping my community. I feel as if, I've got a real strong link to my community. Even just recently, there's been a few people within the community that have passed away, and everyone's come together recently, and that's important. And that's why wherever you go, it's important to seek out those communities and become part of that community, because when people are together, it's very, very powerful. So I'm really proud of my Luton community, and I really enjoyed my time there.
So you then moved on to being the coach of the under-11. So what was it like going from coaching a couple kids coming for a half term, then having the responsibility of an entire team?
It's pretty weird, actually. Like when people read my journey to me and you say, what were you thinking at that time? I think sometimes you just do when you don't have anything to kind of compare it with. If you've never done it before, you just do and learn on the job. And that's what I've always done. And that's why I'll always back myself. If you put me in an environment where I've never been in before, I feel as if I can acclimatise really quickly to that and figure out what's needed. It's also important to figure out the good things that they had before. It's not always actually about changing things. It's about recognising that these are the things that worked for them before and that they enjoyed. So let's keep those things. But actually, how can we tweak those things? So it was always about just getting in and just assessing, almost like troubleshooting. And again, I think as I've got older and more experienced, I can go into a room or go into an environment and troubleshoot really quickly, and I'm hoping that, someone will recognise that, a decision maker, a key influencer, and will be like, we need to get this person in our football club. Yeah.
So in terms of grassroots under 11s, whatever it may be, from my perspective, from my observation, I believe as if the kids that are coming through now are sort of hammered a tiny bit more as if they're playing maybe in some sort of academies, and it is grassroots, you're paying to play. Do you think for younger people coming through now, grassroots has become maybe a bit too serious?
It's a good question, and I can't answer for everyone. I can only give my opinions on what I've seen and what I've heard, and you're right, there are quite a lot of unofficial academies that are opening up now, and in my opinion, some of them are really good because you get really good high quality coaches and the training's fantastic. But then there's some that just see it as a business. You know, it's a money-making scheme, and I just want, you know, people with integrity to make sure that those players are getting what they need in order to be better footballers, but to become better people as well. So, yeah, I do think it can be a little bit more regimented, and, you know, we're gearing towards you becoming a professional footballer, when actually not everyone wants to be a professional footballer. True. They just want to play with their mates, you know, and I think I hope that we just don't lose that magic, because a lot of my good friends now, I met them through grassroots football. We're still friends, you know. I'm best man at a wedding like 6-7 years ago. This person I met through football, you know, so there's more to it than just, right, let's create something where we can create the best players that can go on to become professional footballers. There's a bigger picture that I see anyway.
So, Jason, obviously you do refereeing, right? So could you give us maybe an insight that may be a bit comparable or different from what you've seen coming through? Because I know that you referee grassroots and above that as well. Do you see the game sort of deteriorating from the younger players?
There's definitely a competitive aspect on that. From the kids, you know, I did youth football for 2 years. I now do open age. But in terms of the beauty of the game, I think it's still there. You know, the passion is still there for it. And the clubs that I did work with, they were brilliant with how they dealt with their players. Sometimes there'd be a coach that would be awful to their players, and we'd have to report it for safeguarding issues. But those training programs for those safeguarding matters are continuing to keep the game going.
How would you deal with that? So if like a coach or a player, well, I suppose it would be the coach's perspective, and maybe you're one of the parents or whatever it may, you're involved in the team. How would you deal with that coach who may be going over the top?
Definitely got to report it, like you said, but you need to have a conversation with that person to make them aware, because again, some people are really just in a bubble sometimes, and they're just unaware of their own mannerisms. And that's why it's important, again, to have such a multidisciplinary team around you to kind of hold you accountable to that as well. I've been an assistant for so long, and sometimes, you know, I've had to just give my honest opinion on some things that, you know, there's a lot of things that I've loved and liked of who I've worked for throughout the years. But there's some things that I thought, maybe I need to kind of address that, really. I'm not too comfortable with how that went. So definitely having that conversation, you know, being brave enough to have those, because not everyone is brave enough to do that, because it might affect their job. I might not, if I challenge this person, I might not have a job, but it's for the safety of people, you know, physically and mentally. You know, I think that's important.
So there's this cliche of a hairdryer treatment if a team loses quite badly. So you think that shouldn't be a thing, especially at youth football?
Definitely not at youth football. Look, I've been in youth football, but then I've been in senior change rooms, and they're just chalk and cheese. You know, how I would conduct myself in a youth setting compared to an adult setting, I wouldn't say it's a million miles away, but there's certain things that just you wouldn't do in a youth setting compared to a senior setting. Me personally, my style is more about good communication. I rarely raise my voice, and unless I feel sometimes they just need a bit of a G up, and they need to hear a different tone. But if you're at that high tone, aggressive tone all the time, it loses its impact, I think. And I really pride myself on having good communication with my players and able to land my messages.
Yeah, I had a coach a few years ago, and I was maybe about like 9 or 10, and he just constantly swore. And it's mental to think that you're paying to play for a team, for maybe the coach. You obviously all want to improve your game, but you know, calm down. Do you know what I mean?
So imagine you feeling like that, you know. Imagine like how he conducts himself maybe at home or at work. Again, it's just that self-awareness. Nobody's perfect. You know, I'm still learning about myself at the ripe old age of 37. So it's about having that good people around you for sure to kind of make you aware as well. So
let's jump into your career. So obviously you're at Biggleswade as an assistant manager. And I've got a statistic here of a 65.9% win rate. How did you achieve that? That's something to do.
Let me tell you, after the first couple of games, I genuinely thought we're in trouble here because we didn't look like a good team. And me and the manager, Chris Devan, I think our strong points of working in non-league is identifying players. So we were able to bring in some really good players, and then you create a good working environment of, this is how we work. There were things that we didn't like, habits at that level that we thought, this is insane. Like, how is this happening? For example, we were losing like 2-0, I remember at half time. I remember going into the change room. There was 2 or 3 players on their phones. I don't know why. For me, that's insane.
That's mad, yeah.
Even if it was at step 5, they were still getting paid. It wasn't an enormous amount of money, but there's a certain standard, that you expect. So things like that I wasn't used to, that we had to like really iron out and say, look, this is how we work. If you are on board with it, you stay. If you're not, you simply got to go. We're not negotiating in terms of standards. So I think we raised the standards, and then we just caught fire in terms of like with results. You know what it's like with momentum in football. You win 2 or 3, and all of a sudden you're on a 10-game unbeaten run. And I think that season was curtailed for some reason.
Would have been COVID?
Yeah, after COVID.
It was.
Yeah.
We were flying the league. We were chasing the top 2, and then we also got to a final, where we were step 5, but we knocked out a step 3 team to get to the final. So we missed out on the final as well. So I think we left a real good impression, and I think that earned us a move above to the next team.
Can I just say really quickly, so in terms of standards, would you say the standards between steps and the steps of the football pyramid, would you say there's certain standards that follow because you're in Division 1 or step 1 or step 2?
Sure. There's like... There was a viral video actually that went around recently with a manager. I think he was at step 6, and it was 3 o'clock, and he had players jumping over the barrier to try and get on the bench.
I've seen that video. Yeah.
So yeah, like I know who that coach is, and he's done really well. To be fair, he's got a couple of promotions. So it's not I'm not disrespectful, but it was just I found it funny. But it also like, made me think that. That's the stuff that you got to deal with.
Yeah.
That's step 6, and people are turning up at 3 o'clock. In my opinion, he had every right to question it.
Yeah.
How he did it is another conversation. But in terms of standards, the higher up you go, the more that I expect. And the more that the players should expect, really. But yeah, some of the stories in non-league are great, are funny. Yeah.
I've heard a few.
Yeah.
So when you go up the steps, is there more to your role as well? So do you spend more time looking at a match rather at a different level than
I think it's
one?
a necessity, just for the fact that the levels are higher, the players are better, the coaches that you're going up against are more
experienced,
savvy. So I would definitely agree that the higher up you go. But for me, in terms of my own personal standards, like no one put this on like a sheet to say this is what you have to do. You take it upon yourself to do that. So when I made the jump to step 4 with Berkhamsted, I did everything. I was throughout my stint there, I was assistant manager, caretaker manager, analyst. I did so many different mentor. You do so many different roles, not because like you're asked to, it's because it's troubleshooting. What does this club need? What does this team need? I didn't know how to do analysis when I first kind of like when we first got a VO. I know I wanted to do it, but I never done it. I just taught myself. Lo and behold, 3 years after that, I get a job as an analyst with the Pakistan national team. So I think it's what you make out of the situation,
So how long would you spend re-watching a match, and how do you spot those fine details in between a game that could be the difference of winning or losing a match?
So what was the first question again, sorry?
How long would you spend
re-watching
a match?
Wow, like this was the thing that people didn't realise. So for example, Saturday would be the game, 3 o'clock. You'd watch the game obviously live. I would always leave 24 hours before I watched the game. I remember
you telling me that.
Yeah, because I learned about like your emotional bias when you watch games. Like I used to watch games live, obviously, and then the next day I used to watch it after like 24 hours. I would have a completely different view on the game. You know, I remember coming out of the game thinking, we were rubbish today, you know, and then I watched the game back and my whole opinion changed. And I was like, wow, like this is the power of analysis. And this is why I'm glad that I did it. And then, so I would watch on a Sunday. That would take me to watch the game and to clip and put it in a video and create something for the team on the Sunday. It would take about 3.5 hours. That's a long time to do that. In terms of like what I was looking for, it goes back to your principles in terms of, I always have in possession, out of possession, and transition principles. Those are the things that I'm constantly looking for. And then it's like the Matrix. Like you can go so deep into like what is it that you are looking for. You can look at the opposition, like how they build up and how versus how we pressed. You know, how we built up versus how we pressed, what shape they were in. Honestly, it could go on forever, but contact time is so minimal. You've got to know exactly what it is that you're looking for. And I've just got those key principles in terms of in possession, out of possession, and transitions.
You mentioned about angles of the game, and I remember going to a press pass at Tottenham, and I had the analyst next to me from like a bird's eye view. So do angles make a big difference as to how you look at the game? Because I think the higher that you are, the better, right?
100%. Like, and even like, you know, when I go and watch Liverpool now, and when I buy the tickets, I actually purposely try and get it in the middle of the pitch.
Okay.
I used to be in the cop end, and I love the cop end. That's obviously behind the goal, but just for that purpose of me being able to see the game in a different way, it's brilliant.
So you're still working even though you're watching it?
When you're a coach, your brain just doesn't stop. Like the ball would be on one side, and I'm looking at the centre half, seeing if they're locking on to their striker. You know, you're just constant.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's good.
It's
really
great.
good.
And sometimes it can be like a bit much because I keep saying to myself, just enjoy the game.
Yes,
just
yeah.
enjoy the game. But it's hard to do when you're a coach. And yeah, I love it. I'm a football geek. I love just watching off the ball stuff. But going back to what you're saying, that's when you recognise the important things. You know, everyone can watch the ball and see and determine, okay, that should have been done better, this could have been done better, but actually how you've conceded the goal, it could be off the ball, you know, of how that's happened. So yeah.
So I'm sure there's a difference in sort of technology when it came to coaching in non-league, then going to the Pakistani national team. I've heard Thomas Frank speak about Brentford's training and about how he thought on the eye a player wouldn't perform well, but then he'd look at the technology, seeing that he's done multiple sprints in a game. How different is it to work with that kind of technology at a much higher level than at non-league?
So I think it's interesting because I was able to speak to Thomas Frank, I think 3-4 years ago when I was at Biggleswade. We got an invite in and he was superb, by the way, and it's no surprise that he's doing fantastically well. So I think for me, it all goes down to your decision making. So whatever data you have, it's all about finding actually what does it mean? Because you can have so many of these different numbers. How does it relate to your team? At Berkhamsted non-league, you're right, we just had a VO, didn't have like any other stats really. Whereas with Pakistan, we had access to, you know, these different like stats in terms of sprints. You can use them as evidence, I think. I use analysis and data as evidence to kind of support my agenda. Do you understand? So, for example, if we've had a game where we've lost and I've looked at and I've compared it to a game that we've won and I can see that we've made more sprints, I'll use that to my advantage to influence these players to say, right, there's no coincidence here that when we've run more, we've had more intensity in terms of our sprints, and then I'll also back that up with clips of us maybe winning tackles or, you know, recovery runs to stop a chance. Those are the things that are important that you use with data and with analysis, you know. So it's all good having all these things, but actually how you sift through them and what you do with them and how you make the messages land with players, that's what's most important.
Coaching badges is something that I think a lot of people don't realise how big they are. I think they're a pretty big deal, right? To do your I forgot what order it goes, but UEFA Pro, UEFA C, whatever it may be, and you can, I suppose, just go online and buy them through the FA. But the higher up they get, like the pro license, you have to be accepted. Do you think that badges? What's your opinions on getting these badges? Do you think they're pretty accessible for what they are?
I don't think they're as accessible as they should be, but I also understand that there's been cuts within the Football Association, which means that there's less tutors and mentors that are available to deliver these coaching courses. I also see good and not so good things about. So maybe a positive is if everyone had access to them, maybe it would lose its kind of like importance. But that's something that I think the FA can maybe improve on.
What about the prices of it? Because I know that it's expensive.
Well, I was very fortunate to have a bursary, and so I'm very, very grateful for that. But I also understand that there's some people that just can't afford. I think they're very expensive when you compare it to other countries. The thing that kind of frustrates me a lot, I see a lot of job advertising for roles, and it would be requirement A license and then pay. No, this is voluntary. I'm like, just spent all this money, all this time, my commitment to improving myself, and you can't even just sort travel. And I think that's what should be a topic of discussion in the game, in terms of football clubs know that people will always want to have jobs. They'll be given a tracksuit and, oh, brilliant, I've got a tracksuit, but they're covering up the fact that you're not getting paid. And listen, there are some roles where it's an opportunity to go in voluntary for a limited amount of time and get that experience and get that CV. But I just don't think. I think some clubs are taking advantage of it.
Well, so in this country, there's this belief that we don't produce many good managers. Do you think the cost of the coaching badges is perhaps a reason for that?
It could be. I think you open up a can of worms with that question. Really, there's lots of different factors of maybe why we're not seen. And listen, I don't agree with that, to be honest. I think there are some fantastic managers and coaches in this country. I think you look at what Eddie Howe's doing right now. I watched Newcastle. I watched them against Arsenal in the Cup the other week, and I was like, wow, very, very front-footed team, attack-minded, got a real blend of different characters, but it's just about opportunity, isn't it? It always goes back to that word opportunity. I'm currently seeking my next opportunity, and although I feel I've got all these experiences and knowledge and a personality which I think would be a good fit for various football clubs, it's about someone bringing me up, picking up the phone and saying, Trish, we'd like you to come in for an interview, or just even getting an interview is difficult. So look, it's about that opportunity, isn't it? And I'm hoping that over the years now, there's a trend now of young coaches going out to France. I think it's Liam Rosenior's gone out recently. I love it. I'm all for it. And look, there might be a point in my journey where I think there's not much happening to me for me here, and I'm really open-minded to seeing what's out there. So.
Well, before we talk about Pakistan, I just wanted to touch upon the England C team. So I know for a lot of people, they might not know what that is. Well, firstly, where's the B team? Is that the under-23s? And the C team, talk to us about that. So
it's basically a setup to, promote non-league, National League South, National League North, for those players, the best players in those divisions, to represent their country, the opportunity to represent the country, and it's a great setup, and it's really headed by a great man, Paul Fairclough, someone that honestly I spent 3-4 days with him, and I was just blown away by his level of preparation, but how he made everyone, and that's me including staff, make it feel so special. And I hope that they get the funding to continue that, because I know they've had some issues with funding, and it changed those. Imagine those non-league players. Some of them might not reach the pinnacle of the Premier League or League One, League Two, but no one can take it away from them to say that they've represented their country. So an unbelievable experience.
To work behind the scenes for the England C team, I know that they played against like Nepal a few months ago,
Yeah.
and I remember there was a lot of Barnet players in that team. But as the coach, as a coach behind the scenes, how do you, I suppose, pick the team?
So there's a lot of work that's being done behind the scenes actually. There's a recruitment and data company. I can't remember the name, but the gaffer Paul Fairclough, he works in conjunction with them. So they will go out and scout, and they will come back with regular data, like we said, and put forward some of these players. The gaffer will then go and watch some of these players live and then make decisions on that. So it's done throughout the year. The only, I think, challenge is sometimes these, when I was involved for that game against Wales, that game was just before the playoffs. So naturally, some of the clubs were reluctant to release those players because of maybe potential injury. So I think we had we had a really good striker, but he was
Shane Long?
No, it was he's at Millwall now. He's a striker, forward, Long. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Real good striker, scored lots of goals, but his club just simply said, look, we can't do this. We're in the playoffs, we need him. We're going to risk it, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great experience.
Are you trying to find that player? Did you find it?
Well, I'm just looking on the Millwall website right now. But before we move on to Pakistan, I want to talk about your caretaker manager stint at Berkhamsted in December 2023. What's it like to deal with a dressing room that's perhaps unsettled and you feeling like a stopgap?
Well, honestly, it's one of the best experiences of my journey so far. It gave me a real taste of management, and it also showed a lot of the people maybe that didn't maybe recognize that I could have done a solid job, that actually if you give someone like myself an opportunity, I can surprise you and I can do a good job, and I truly believe that. So I was actually with the 18s at the time. So I'll take you through. So the year before, we'd won the league. We'd got promoted, but as a management team, we decided to leave because there was some disagreements in terms of budgets, etc., going into the next step. I then was out of work for a little bit, and then the 18s job came up at the same club, and they actually said, do you fancy it? And I was like, do you know what? I do, I'd rather be working. I've not really done 18s. That's the only part of my gap that I needed to fill, really. And then halfway through the season, I understood that the team weren't doing well. So I made sure that I went and watched the games of the first team, knowing that look, if results don't go, according to plan, the natural selection is they'll either get another manager in or they might ask me. Yeah, so I made sure that I was prepared by watching players, having an idea of how I would see them in my team, but also trying to get a glimpse of their people's personalities. And as soon as I got the phone call to be a caretaker, I couldn't wait. I think the team hadn't won in 23 games, and I just knew my job was just to make sure that they felt good about themselves again, and give them the confidence. And I just remember having lots of Zoom calls and meetings on the phone. I had limited time. Me and my assistant Aaron Morgan, who's a brilliant coach, we just put together an action plan of right, what do they need, and how can we impact them in little time as we can. And we ended up winning that game 3-1. We were 1-0 down at half time, and we came back and won 3-1. And there were scenes at the end, I tell you, it was unbelievable.
I've found the player, by the way, Macaulay Langstaff.
That's
it.
Really good player.
It says here, as of 2023, he holds the National League record for most league goals scored in a season. So how special was it to manage a player of that caliber?
He was the player that didn't come. The club said, look, we're in a good position here. We can't let him go. So that was a shame. Oh. So yeah, that's what I'm saying about opportunities. Look, he's gone on he's playing in the Championship now. But I know probably deep down he's thinking, missed opportunity there to represent my country. But that's football, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's move on to the Pakistan national team job then. So originally you went there to do some analyst work, is that right?
Yeah, so I was working remotely for the manager to do some analyst work, because I did some work previously for his old club, East Bengal, who were in the Indian Super League. So that's how I kind of made a connection with the manager.
How did it feel to go over there? So when you went over there, did you know that you had the job already?
Yeah, so after 6 months, he kind of rang me up, and I kind of knew that there was a little chance of me being able to travel, because, you know, politics, relations between India and Pakistan, and obviously my surname kind of gives it away, doesn't it, Patel, with my Indian background. But look, he managed to really champion me and say, look, this person is good. You know, he really, really championed and pushed me, and I'll forever be grateful for that. I remember going to the airport, and I handed over my passport, and the security guard saw my passport was from the UK, but he was fixated on my name. You know, where are you from?
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, from England. No, where are your parents from? Well, my parents are actually from Kenya. They were born in Kenya. And then, where are your grandparents from?
Really?
Yeah, my grandparents.
Were you scared that you won't be able to go through?
Yeah, of course. Like you do, because you hear, you know, I've watched the rivalry between the two countries in terms of cricket, and I understand there's a rivalry there, but that was the most pleasing about after when I came back was there was articles written about breaking barriers, that I potentially have broken a barrier there in terms of, like, hopefully there's more interaction and more openness for, you know, people to work for each other. So that was good. But I loved my time in Pakistan. The supporters straight away, the messages that I got on my Instagram were just full of support, and I'll forever be grateful for that. You know, it just gave me, it got rid of my anxiety, because there was a bit of anxiety before, and they just made me feel from moment one that, you know, you're with us, we've got you, and I just, from then on, I just want to do a good job. I just wanted to do a good job for them, you know?
You were working under Stephen Constantine, who was the manager at the time. He'd been a manager since 1999, having represented Nepal, India, Malawi, Sudan, Rwanda, and many more. How much easier did it make it working under someone experienced as him?
Listen, the gaffer is not just a great manager. Look at that. Look at his CV. It speaks for itself. Like, not everyone would be so brave and thinking, I'm gonna go out of the country to get my opportunity, and I'm gonna do, you know, my work. And he's just a great person. You know, we have so many conversations about that word opportunity, and for him, it was always about, are you good enough for the job? You know, that's all you've got to show me. And, you know, my opinion is not everyone thinks that way in the game. And I've learned so much from working with him in terms of how you conduct yourself, how you treat players, how you fight for your staff and players. I really hope that I get to work with him again, for sure.
So you went there to do, obviously, analyst work, and then how did the role as the assistant manager come about?
So I was doing 6 months as an analyst remotely, but then the whole point of me going over was to have a dual kind of role as an analyst and the assistant coach. So I was obviously working alongside Stephen and as a coach as well, but I was also doing the analyst stuff as well, which I think is a great mixture and a great blend to have, because not only are you analysing and you're showing them, but you're actually going out on the grass to really lay down those foundations. So it was a good blend.
What's the period like between the camps then? Because I know for England, we sometimes look forward to seeing the videos come through of the training people and Cole Palmer, whoever it might be. Sometimes underwhelming, some of the players in the squads. But for you in between camps as a coach, what sort of, firstly, keeps you occupied, but secondly, prepares you for the next camp?
I think it's a lot of watching our own games and figuring out, like, is what we're seeing matching up to how we want it to look like in terms of our game model and our values and our principles, but also keeping an eye on the opposition. Because the contact time in international football is really, really short. You've only got like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You've got to get a lot in that time. So we did like double sessions. Like we'd go really early in the morning, 7:30, do an hour and a half session because the daytime was just too hot. You couldn't train. And then when it calmed down, we'd go back and we'd do another session. But also during that, in the daytime, we encouraged them to eat well, sleep well. But also I would hold lots of either individual or unit meetings with the players to really drip and ingrain our ideas, you know. So it was brilliant. Honestly, when I was there, I just thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be in and amongst it every single day, living and breathing it. And then obviously when it got to game day, it just heightened by 100, you know. It was unbelievable.
Let's talk about that game day then. Saudi Arabia, you mentioned about how you were starstruck by seeing Yaya Toure and Mancini in the opposite dugout. But what was it like being involved in a match where the attendance was 11,150?
Wow.
Yeah, like I said, I was in a kind of like half like, right, you got a job to do. But then you look over and you're like, he's won the Premier League. You know, like it's unbelievable. It was incredible, to be honest. But it was almost like a feeling of, this is what I worked for. This is what I worked for, to kind of pit your wits against an unbelievable manager who with an assistant, Yaya Toure, unbelievable player, you know, incredible. If you look at their honours and what they've won, man, like top tier. So, you know, to be involved in that game was brilliant. You know, I think the first 30 minutes went exactly how we wanted it to go in terms of nullifying them, clean sheet, you know, just really frustrating them. We really made a big deal about getting to 30 minutes because in previous games, the first 15 minutes of the previous 4 games, we'd conceded within the first 15 minutes. You know, that we had to change. And in those 2 games against Saudi and Tajikistan, we did that twice. We limited a team for 30 minutes. And it's just, the frustration is you want more contact time with them, don't you?
Yeah.
But going back to that Saudi game, they were just brilliant with us. You know, they gave us some time after the game to ask questions, to have pictures. And yeah, it was something that will live with me forever. You know, no matter what I go on to achieve, you know, in my career, I'll always have that to kind of, you know, to look back on and think, wow, what an incredible experience.
So you met the pair of them. So obviously you had a conversation with them, right?
Yeah,
How was that?
Yeah, just like I said, like I think you got to change your mindset as well in terms of thinking, right, if you want to be here and you want to be here on a regular basis, these are the people that are gonna that you're going to be come up against. Yes, you show them that respect, but actually, again, it goes back to that childhood feeling of, I want to beat you. I want to win. So it's about changing that mindset, and hopefully there'll be, God willing, there'll be more people that I interact with and I come up against on my journey, you know.
Were you not in a way nervous to meet them?
Must have been nervous.
Oh yeah, sure, of course. Like it's more, I would say it was more of an excitement, because you just think like what they've achieved in the game, both as players, both of them, Mancini and Yaya Toure. And now, obviously, I know Yaya's on his coaching journey himself now. But yeah, even just like for the game, he's got his best Italian suit out. He looks $1 million on the sideline, Mancini. And then after, when I'm seeing him, he's got changed back into his tracksuit. They've got their own food catered in, pizzas, everything. And it's just like, yeah, look, I aspire to, you know, learn off people like that. You know, so I was asking them so many different questions that hopefully I can take away into my own journey in my career.
I think people are very intrigued to know, how do you, as a coaching staff, and of course Stephen, call up players to the international team?
Again, similar process to the England C team. There's a lot of scouting that's done. There's local scouts. There's like national scouts, because as you are aware that not everyone in that squad play in Pakistan, or they play in different countries like Cyprus, Denmark, England. So there's so many games to be watched, and there's a platform called Y Scout. Honestly, it's one of the best things that I've ever come across. Like, you can literally watch any game that you can in the world, you know. So it's just keeping an eye on, you know, as well, upcoming players. There's players in the academies, like Brighton have got a couple of academy players that are eligible to play for Pakistan. Whether they choose to is, again, it's up to them.
How do you do that conversation?
I think Stephen will contact, the club and go through it in that way. It's always done in a respectful, professional
manner. As it should be.
Yeah, as it should be, for sure. And then it's up to those players to make that decision, But yeah, similar process to the England C. Lots of scouting, lots of conversations. And then, look, we always have a number of players that we call up. And then after 2 weeks, we then cut that down.
So it's a pool of players that you pick?
Yeah, it's a pool of players. So we always kind of judge players on how they train and how they interact and how they come across as people, So, no, there's some fantastic players for sure.
Do you sometimes have conversations with the players who might not have made it that time but could definitely have a chance in the future?
Absolutely, and I think having that open communication is important because there's so many players that are available and for whatever reason they might not make it to that particular camp, and it might be because of the type of opposition we're up against, or they might be just out of form or just coming back from injury and someone else is in better form and someone else has played more minutes. It's those conversations that I'm learning from Stephen of how to speak with players because he's an expert.
Do you think there's some arrogance in these teams? And maybe not with Pakistan, maybe not with some teams that you've worked in the past, but there's arrogance for these players that they are representing their country, they are at the top of where they possibly can be.
I didn't feel that with, honestly, the players that I worked with Pakistan, do you know what they all are? They're all humble, very humble, because they come from humble backgrounds, and that made me want to help them even more so. I've worked with lots of young people in my own mentoring kind of like business within schools, and I understand when people haven't had much, what they do need is care, and they need optimism, and they need hope, and that's what I try to provide for them. But some of these are really just fighting just to provide for their families, and that's my impression of the Pakistani players. Of wow, these are incredible people, really hardworking, but just good-spirited people. So I certainly haven't experienced that from the Pakistani players for sure.
So how did that come to an end then? Because I know for you, you're currently doing your coaching stuff, but you told me before there could be some hope that you could return to the job.
Yeah, it just depends on the committee and what happens after. I think after a period of time, there's elections, and my contract was in line with the elections coming to fruition, and I suppose you just got to wait and see what happens now. I would love to be able to go back and just work again. I had a great time. I really felt in those 2 games we made steps forward, small steps. Okay, results weren't wins, but there was small things that we looked at and thought, these boys are starting to get our ideas here, and it was just a shame that it just came to an end. But again, that's football. That's what I've learned, to embrace the uncertainty and the chaos for sure. And let's see within the next week or 2 weeks and see what happens with the elections. And I would love to go back for sure.
Best of luck with that.
So what are your intentions for the future? Is it starting to become more of the head coach now?
I'm not fixated on head coach, and I just I just want to get back to working in the football game. I just want to get back to working where I'm in an environment where I can grow. I absolutely know my capabilities and the value that I can add to a team. Like I said, I've been a manager, I've been an assistant coach, I've been an analyst, I've been a mentor. All those things I feel, could definitely add value to an organisation or a football club. And look, I'm just networking, speaking to people, but I'm really open-minded for people to contact me and let's have a conversation. I'm itching to get back. I've been out for 3 months now, so I'm just proactively seeking my next opportunity.
I know that you do coaching, individual coaching. So is that what's been keeping your time busy?
Yeah, I've done lots of different jobs. I've got players that I'm working with individually, where we're out on the grass and we're working on their individual development plans. They're either in academies or they're in the professional game. And then I've also got online stuff that I'd work with them. You know, some people that I don't have access to them because they would live too far away, but they need help in terms of support with resilience, with, you know, being out of the team. How do they deal with that? You know, coming back from injury. These are the things that, you know, are so important to be able to get to that next level. But yeah, I'm just keeping myself ticking over, keeping myself busy. I go to the LMA events where there's lots of managers out of work, which that was almost like a therapy session for me. Because sometimes you think it's just you. You think, oh, what's next? Like, what's going to happen? You get, like, you know, worried. But going into that room, there's lots of people that are in the same position as me. And it's also great to network, because some of those people might get jobs, and might be an opportunity for you to kind of showcase, actually, this is what I can offer, and they might take you along. So, yeah.
Bit similar to us then with the networking.
Yeah.
It's very important in the world of football. And do you see that growing?
Yeah, look, if I could give any advice to, you know, upcoming coaches and managers or whatever, is your network is so important. And I've learned that a lot in the last 2 years. I think it's really important to network and learn about other people. Let them know about you, but just make sure that it's a genuine connection. It's not about taking from people. It's about sharing and learning and hopefully collaborating with people. So networking is a massive, massive skill, not just in football, but in life, isn't it? Many doors can open up, but it's just about having a platform. Yeah. And I thank you again for allowing me to come on, and hopefully, you know, someone will look in and think, we need to have a conversation with this person.
So before we sort of wrap this up, I just wanted to, maybe you look directly into that camera and give some advice to the youth, of the players that are coming through. I know that you've experienced a lot of journeys of players, individual ones. So what advice would you give to them?
I think what's really important is you strip it down and understand that why you're playing the game. And it's always got to be for joy, for fun. Yes, we want to win, but actually going through a journey and, you know, going through the highs and lows is part of it. It's you don't go from A to B. You don't just win. You got to go through highs and lows. Enjoy that part, because there's going to be a day where you stop playing football. And when that is, you know, it could be next week, it could be 10 years' time. Just enjoy your football. Enjoy improving. Enjoy spending time with your teammates. Enjoy the connections that you have with fans, with your manager, because it can go really quickly. So just enjoy. Football is for enjoyment, and it's for joy.
Well, that's been a brilliant message and a brilliant story from you, Trishan. We're delighted to have had you on.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Thanks,
so what
guys.
we always do, we always end it with a handshake.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Thank
and then
you.
you two want to go across the table.
Thank you.
And then Jason as well. It's you know, some people call it cringe. I just call it a good way to end. Yeah.